If you take a look at the NieR Automata cover, you get the impression things are rather bleak. Dull colors, a dark, destroyed, overgrown setting, and doom, just despair. Now look at today's game, Drakengard's cover. This one immediately gives off a completely different vibe. The red, the dragon, the knightly armor and sword. It smells of blood, yet it gives you the big impression of heroic action. Like you can almost imagine this knight-like character riding a dragon through the sky. Now, what if I told you these games were made by the same person? Well, that wouldn't be too far-fetched, right? After all, there's plenty of instances of people making completely different games. But what if I was to tell you that they're connected to one another? Still, even then, you could just describe them as maybe taking place in the same universe. Completely different stories, not connected, different places. But what if I take it a step further and say this game is a prequel to that game? And I bumped my mic, whoopsie. Now that proposes some interesting questions. More importantly, what even is this game? Well, this is Drakengard, a 2003 PlayStation 2 game that is the prequel to very popular game, I hope you've heard of it, NieR Automata. I imagine that surprises some of you, as I was very surprised when I realized how many casual NieR fans just don't know about the Drakengard series. I mean, just how? Regardless, upon looking at the covers, you could never imagine this is the case. After all, they're complete opposites in everything, from the minute details to the color schemes. Though, now that you know about their connection and have it in your mind, it's easy to imagine Drakengard's colors with a different meaning. Rather than attributing red to a heroic and fierce tale, it's quite possible to attribute them to a tale of bloodshed, of horror, and sadness. One in line with NieR Automata due to their close connection. A fair assumption, and one I too felt upon my journey into this game. But even then, I don't think I knew how bad it would get. I never would have imagined Drakengard might not only be just as depressing as NieR Automata, but maybe, just maybe, it's even worse. So I guess some context would be pretty helpful. After all, Drakengard is the rather unknown entry that spun into a huge franchise that has sold well over 12 million copies. A situation like this has gotta have a pretty sick origin story. And well, it does, lending its existence to what seems like a chance encounter. It all begins in a bar. In one seat, you have Takuya Iwasaki, director of Ace Combat 3, a flight-based combat game. In the other seat is Takamasa Shiba, a Square Enix producer. And this random meeting led to a random question. What if they made Ace Combat 3, but added dragons? And so Drakengard was born. Yet at the time, it wasn't Drakengard, rather Project Dragonspear. Iwasaki would go on to join Kaguya for this Project Dragonspear. And while the project was spearheaded by him, he felt as if he just didn't have the time to fully take the reins. And so he personally gave the role to a young man named Yoko Taro, placing him in the director's seat for the very first time. Drakengard was also one of Yoko Taro's first games, period. And if you don't know who Yoko Taro is, you've probably seen him. You know, the guy with the Emil head. You know, this little guy, you know, the guy who sits behind me every video. The green screen is probably messing him up right now. But if it is, I can't really check. If it is, put a picture of him just on top of my hand. Yoko Taro is always wearing this Emil head, never seen without it. And to add to the silliness, he's definitely in love with his characters, but we've all seen 2B. I get it. Despite the constant silliness, which never really seems to stop with him, Yoko Taro still shows serious love to all of those around him, recently saying Stellar Blade is better than his own games, as well as doing a whole video with Atlas about Metaphor, and this is the best thing I've ever seen.
俺の次回作はメタファーリーファンタジオ2、そちらのディレクター&シナリオを横尾太郎がやります。皆さんよろしくお願いします。
And it's not even just his peers, as he constantly shows appreciation to all the support he receives, in response to art, cosplays, even normal tweets. It's just something super cool you don't see very often. Point is, nothing can be said but that Yoko Taro is all around a great and entertaining guy. Yet Aniplex still felt like they could deny Yoko Taro adding a scene to the NieR anime because apparently that's not how his characters would act when he literally made them. Anyways, very off topic, Yoko Taro is the man mainly responsible for spinning the game in the direction we know it as. Everything in this series, NieR, this guy is the craziness behind it all. Hence why it's so important to note this guy. He's a genius. With Drakengard, Yoko Taro and writer Sawako Natori set out to create a standout story. One that was far darker than popular Square Enix titles like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. To them though, a dark story wasn't just simply a dark world. They wanted Drakengard itself to seep in dark identity, consuming everything in the game from the music to the dialogue. One of their bigger ideas was to make the cast rather gray. Gray in the way that while they may be trying to do a good thing, they aren't good people. With themes of extreme violence and standout topics like incest or cannibalism running rampant. Yoko Taro, you mad lad. But with topics like this, there's an obvious fear around the game being outright rejected. And if not, at least being submitted the changes the team behind it may not love. Changes that may or may not ruin the creative spirit and individuality a game is meant to have. And in Drakengard's case, it's a mix of both good and bad. When Yoko Taro had someone pitch the game to Sony, he was lucky enough for them to pass it without questions, making a PS2 release possible. Though when it came to Square Enix themselves, they weren't so quick to let the game through without issues. With the recent rise of the Dynasty Warriors series, Square Enix demanded elements like that in Drakengard. Issue is, these guys were not used to making action games at all. Matter of fact, Ace Combat, the series the project was majorly inspired by, was an aerial game. They hadn't even considered ground combat for Drakengard, leading to the entirety of the game being restructured. While most of Square Enix's other requests could be turned away, this doesn't mean it wasn't a constant battle over what this game would and wouldn't do. Oh, and it all happened while this game was being time crunched. The time crunch was so terrible that while Drakengard was planned to be big enough to take place on 2 whole discs, it never even got close to that size, and you could still find tons of weird, scrapped content in the game files. Like, oh, you know, Neo from the Matrix. Yeah, that's a real thing, by the way. Like, it's right. This is perfect. I absolutely love it, and I think this should have been in the game. All these changes and issues heavily bothered Yoko Taro. As to him, Drakengard's somber topics were normal for him. He felt there was no real reason for changes, and by the time the game was complete, he had been told to do so many retakes, make so many changes, and remove so much content, he never wanted to work on the series again. To think it could have almost ended there. But anyways, in the end, we know how that worked out. Drakengard, or Dragon Dragoon as it's known in Japan, released in 2003 for the PlayStation 2, a title that would mark the beginning of Yoko Taro's long legacy of games, as well as marking the start of this universe me and so many others have been entranced with. This is Drakengard, one of the most disparaging games I've ever played.
Love, crimson blood, poison, eternity, revenge, two, sacrifice, mother, ritual, scarlet, prayers, heresy, hell, solitude, sky, madness, God of world, adore us.
Drakengard opens to a world swarmed by battle. The Union and the Empire wage war for control of a goddess. In the midst of this war, we're introduced to Kaim, a soldier who fights for the Union, a military made up of small independent kingdoms to repel the forces of the Empire. The Empire is a huge military, far bigger than the Union, them characterized by their mysterious red glowing eyes and trance-like state. The Empire's big grand goal is to break the world's seals, with all these seals being physical places besides one. The goddess, Kaim's sister, Furiai, is the final seal. We don't know too much about being a goddess. At least Drakengard 1 doesn't tell us too much about it. I know Drakengard 2 does get a bit more into detail about how it happens and all that, but for right now, we don't know all too much. But what we do know is that somehow her existence, her being alive, is something keeping the world from ruin. Though this battle we've opened to seems like it could very well be the last. The Empire's on Kaim's doorstep, and the only thing between the Empire and Furiai is him. Kaim fights with a cold heart warmed by rage, as the Empire has not only taken his parents, but they are threatening to take his only sister. Still, this rage isn't enough. Kaim finds himself bloodied and on the brink of death, only carried by adrenaline as he walks into the castle. But by a stroke of luck, or maybe despair, he finds a dragon, a creature the Empire used to kill his parents. And in a moment that shouldn't go this hard, Kaim proposes a pact with this being.
Kill me if you desire, but you can never dirty my soul, wretched human.
Tell me, do you still want to live, dragon?
What?
A pact! There's no other way!
What makes you worthy of a pact with me?
Worthy or not, I wish to live. Despise me if you will, but I shall not die! Your answer! A pact or death!
And while we watch Kaim protect that dragon so that they can make the pact, let me explain what a pact even entails in the world of Drakengard. A pact is, well, it's exactly as it sounds. It's a contract between two beings basically binding their souls, with this binding of their souls being able to save both of the beings from near death. Like in this situation with Kaim and Angelus is the dragon's name by the way, they're able to live thanks to this pact. The pact partner, or the human, pays a price, and in Kaim's case, it's his voice, something that really goes on to become a haunting part of this game. You just gotta trust me. But after defending the dragon, Kaim returns for an answer, once again proposing the question, a pact or death? The answer is obvious, a pact, and so Kaim seemingly rips open his chest to carve out his soul, binding it to the dragon as they fly off, ready to win this battle. This is a perfect opening for a world like Drakengard, illustrating a scenario that is drenched in fantasy-based ideas, yet managing to be immensely interesting right away. But at the moment, I can't personally imagine how this is gonna twist its way into something dark. Still, no reason to worry right now as we finally have access to Drakengard's main gameplay appeal, the dragon. While not its only gameplay aspect, we'll be on to the others in a second, you can definitely tell these sky battles are what they imagined when making the game, almost as if the whole game was made around these levels. Something I really do imagine was the case before all those changes were made. I really would have loved for Drakengard to be 90% of this and just nothing else. But, well, what's it like? Well, besides the obvious fun that comes with raining down fire as a dragon, it's put together pretty well. You fly through the sky and take shots at enemies that are either stationary or flying at you, with dodge buttons to help avoid their attacks. You had the bumpers to dodge left or right, or you could press the X button to dash forward. Though, with all this aerial movement in mind, sky battles, and PS2 games in general, camera work was a really big fear of mine. But surprisingly, they thought of that, as you can turn lock on off with a single button and press both bumpers together to do a quick turn. This came out before Resident Evil 4 by the way, I was really surprised to see that. When it comes to firepower, it's not all that diverse, but it's just enough to do its job. You can hold square to lock on or you can free fire. It is really simple, but I like that each style is rewarding. While locking on is more brain dead, you can choose to manually aim your shots for a nice bonus to your damage, making each option great in its own right. Eventually, once you save up enough magic, the green little bar in the corner, you can fire a flurry of fire that auto-targets enemies and hits really hard. I mean, like literally really hard, like it will one-shot most mobs in the game. With all of this combining to be just enough to get you through these sky missions and back on the ground. Kaim may be all-powerful now, but the battle isn't yet won. The Empire has them outnumbered 20-1, and so Kaim lands, opting for a more personal battle. This means we're now onto the ground gameplay, and let me tell you right now, this part sucks. I'd say about 60% of Drakengard's missions are in this style, on the ground and personal, where you can alternate between Kaim and riding Angelus. Riding the dragon in the sky levels is great, and so it should be the same here, but it's not. They constantly try and make you get off. As about 30% into this game, they will start filling these ground levels with archers and magic resisting enemies, making the dragon absolutely useless if you don't get shot down first. Then I don't see the dragon fitting in the inside levels, as it's definitely not getting through a door. It's just so disappointing, as this is by far the most fun part of the game. But let me be specific. When I say that this part sucks, I'm more so talking about Kaim, not Angelus. Kaim's gameplay mainly consists of mashing square and occasionally pressing triangle for magic, though that magic part becomes obsolete once those magic resisting enemies appear. You can definitely see the Forced Warriors' influence on the battlefield as a whole. They're filled with enemies that are meant to be invading the castles and stuff, but they just kinda stand there. And before I literally knew that the Warriors' influence was a thing, I wrote in my notes that this game reminds me of a really shitty Warriors game. It's just overall not fun. Maybe for about 5 minutes, but past that it doesn't do anything to shake it up. Where a Warriors game would try and gradually open the floodgates to keep you interested, Drakengard says this is all you get. If that makes you cry, well, stick around. They're gonna give you something to cry about. Trust me. But enough about the gameplay for now. I think it's about time we charge the castle and find our goddess. As Kaim cleaves through the Empire using his newfound magic powers, we begin to hear the soldiers. And the way they speak, and the way they sound, it gives the impression that these men are under some sort of control. It's not just bad voice acting.
Upwards, upwards, the seal is above. The goddess seal is there.
Upon reaching Furiai's room, we find her surrounded by soldiers, yet one of them is on our side. Together we fight and clear the room, with Kaim showing an increasing amount of bloodlust as he relentlessly cuts down a soldier right in front of his sister. As he turns around and moves his lips to speak, silence. It truly occurs to Kaim what he has given up for his pact. Something that becomes evident to the others as he reveals his tongue, branded with the sign of a pact. The red-haired soldier, Inuart, Kaim's friend and Furiai's fiancé, almost seems angry at this realization. But perhaps it's worry, as next he says they must get Furiai out of the castle, planning to bring her to the elf village. But first, a moment of song. Inuart plays and sings, making it clear music is something very important to him, bringing them all a moment of peace as Furiai pulls herself close to Kaim. Though this peace can't last long, as they quickly find themselves on the way to the elf village. But sometime along the way, we learn the village may have already been attacked by the Empire. Refusing to believe this, Inuart demands we go and see ourselves. So we take to the skies yet again, and during our travels we hear some monologue from Inuart, him saying that without Furiai, the goddess, the world will perish. But now that she is goddess, his world is already dead. Now this seems very unimportant at face, but when you do understand something not explicitly said, this quote becomes quite dark. Furiai is the goddess, a position she didn't choose as it's randomly bestowed upon people, but it's a position she didn't really want. But she can't say no to this position as, well, as he says, Without it, the world will perish. Without the goddess, the world will go to ruin. There's one thing though. For some reason, a goddess cannot get married. Meaning Inuart, her fiance, has been put in this horrific position where he can't say nothing due to the weight of her position. Meaning his world with her has died. I just wanted to chime this in as it is a very essential piece to understanding his character and later motivations. But eventually we reach the foggy lands that house the elf village. And once there we find hell. The Empire is ahead of us and has brought this village to ruin. Yet when all hope seems lost, we hear a voice. This voice belongs to Hierarch Vertile, leader of the Union and yet another person with a pact. His pact price being his hair. Bro really lost his hair to get this like seal thing on his head. Oh my god, that's tough. Vertile is the keeper of the 4 seals and has asked them to bring Furii to the desert for her protection. After this conversation, Inuart cracks. He feels weak and reflects on how he's unable to protect his love, Furii. Yet she tries to comfort him, saying she loves his music and his songs, that he should keep going. But he cuts her off, saying that he prays for nothing but strength, demanding they leave now for the desert. Kaim opts to stay back, opting to investigate the area and clear it of the Empire. And as the two groups split, Kaim delves deeper into the ruined village, soon coming across a mysterious message.
Speak not the watchers, draw not the watchers, write not the watchers, sculpt not the watchers, sing not the watchers, call not the watcher's name. What is this?
These Watchers are soon revealed to be some sort of cult residing in the area, and after learning where they might be, Kaim chases after them. Upon reaching the shrine, it's surrounded by the Empire and Watchers alike, implying the two of them are close, if not one and the same. Still, there's bigger things to worry about. Kaim no longer hears Vertile's voice, urging him to rush to the desert to make sure everything is alright. But first, Kaim is made aware the Empires also attacked the fairy village. Strangely, Kaim is interested, causing Angelus to ask, do you go to save lives or take them? And the answer is already clear. Kaim couldn't care less about these people, but the Empire? He will make them suffer, his bloodlust more apparent than ever. When we reach the Valley of the Fairies, we're shown a cutscene of a man in despair. This man, Leonard, holds a knife to his throat in front of his destroyed village and dead brothers, blaming himself for the Empire's attack. And as he's about to commit the act, a fairy pops up. Out of nowhere, this fairy appears to ridicule him, saying he's betrayed his brothers while laughing maniacally at the sight. She urges him to finish the job, but all of a sudden has a change of heart, forming a pact with him and taking his sight, perhaps so that she may continue to laugh at him. Upon meeting Kaim, he joins him, before saying, no man is beyond forgiveness. Except this guy. There is no forgiving this one. I don't think YouTube wants me to say the word exactly or any other words, you will know what I mean, but old Leonard here, Leonard, he is a child enjoyer. Yeah, he's nasty. But that really isn't explicitly clear from that scene, and that would be because this is the English version of Drakengard. In this version, there's a lot of character traits that are purposely censored. And I don't mean censored as in they just remove the scene, but as in things are worded in a way that might make you feel a bit suspicious, but never give you the actual answer. Basically, there's a lot of changed lines, some of which honestly do a terrible job at giving you the ideas they should. While definitely a choice made to tone the game down a bit, it's also because certain topics are considered way more strange and taboo to say out loud in English. Like sure, you can imply these things, but straight up saying it like the Japanese game does is a big no-no. In this scene, what it doesn't tell you is that the reason Leonard wasn't killed alongside his brothers, and the reason he wasn't there to protect them, was because he was in the forest taking care of his sick urges. This is made worse when the fairy comes around, as the changes make it seem like she just finds him funny, when in reality she constantly references his infatuation with children. Something this sick fairy just finds so hilarious. This character trait also draws an uncomfortable connection to a few things later in game, so I'm sorry to say, keep this sick bastard in the back of your mind as I just go through the rest of the game. Anyways, Kaim finally reaches the desert where he finds Furiai all alone, who reveals Inuart and Vertile were captured. This leaves Kaim no choice but to rush in their direction, but once he finds Vertile, Inuart has mysteriously disappeared. Though, right now there's bigger things to worry about. The Empire's finally begun to destroy the seals in an effort to release the Seeds of Resurrection, which, despite their name, these are devices of mass destruction that signify the end of the world. It's not good. We then cut to Inuart, held in some kind of Empire Watcher prison. He's speaking to a being clad in a red aura, a Watcher. And as he yells out in sorrow, they respond, almost trying to push him further and further. Inuart asks for strength. The Watcher responds, saying that with strength he could protect Furiai. He could make her his own. Confused, Inuart wonders what could be going on. Yet the Watcher presses on. Her all his, in his arms. No one but him can have her. Not even Kaim. Then, they say the goddess will die, even though she was once a normal woman, one who would laugh and love next to Inuart. She will die due to the seal. These words cause Inuart to ask a question. If she ceases to be goddess, will Furiai return to being that woman? The Watcher answers this in a way that almost means yes, saying that he needs strength. Strength from forming a pact with the dragon. Inuart instantly remembers Kaim. Yet the Watcher responds, suggesting he shouldn't let Kaim bathe in the love from saving her. After all, it should be all Inuart. And here we gotta stop for a second to talk a little bit more about censorship. This situation is a bit more obvious, yet it's not there as much as it really should be. What is being censored? Well, it is heavily implied that Kaim and Furiai's relationship and how Furiai thinks of Kaim is not how a sister should think of her brother, if you know what I mean. Though still somewhat censored, with lines being changed or removed, I think you can understand this one being the case in game. From the very beginning, their relationship seems a bit strange. When we first meet Furiai, she gravitates towards Kaim rather than her lover. Then later, even Angelus notices these feelings. During a certain sky battle, she continuously speaks on Furiai's strange feelings. And finally, in a secret scene towards the end of the game, she even asks to be held by Kaim, all but confirming her strange love. Though it's important to mention, there's not one point where Kaim reciprocates these feelings. He's not weird in that way, he just really likes blood. In the end, this plotline is mostly used to push Inuart over the edge. Inuart understands and is painfully aware of Furiai's feelings for her own brother. Hence why he gets so upset upon thinking of Kaim. Kaim's literally taking his girl, yet the girl is his sister. This situation shouldn't even be happening, yet it is. On top of that, he is all of a sudden super weak compared to Kaim. While he was never as strong as him, Inuart was at least comparable to Kaim at one point. But all of a sudden, Kaim is teamed up with the dragon, making Inuart useless in comparison. Inuart is jealous, not only of his love, but of his lack of strength. Both things Kaim now has. And here we witness the Watcher manipulate Inuart's true feelings on this, something that can only lead to the worst outcome. Meanwhile, Kaim fails to protect the seal, but not before finding something strange. Back at camp, Kaim reveals he's found Inuart's harp, and now knowing what we know, this can only mean the worst. But before they can dwell on it, they hear another voice and Kaim is whisked away to another location, like always. And look at that. These two just get to sit here while Kaim is trying to make sure the world doesn't end. He hasn't gotten a single rest since this game started, and I'm really thinking he needs it by now. But, well, okay, actually, really thinking about it, he really likes killing. Like, it seems to be like his hobby, his special thing. So he probably really enjoys that this is happening. This is a really weird game. Things get even stranger when Kaim learns the source of the new voice, Arioch. But first, before they meet, we see Arioch make her pact. As she draws closer to death, she is confronted by the spirits of fire and water, them offering her a pact. Arioch, with no real options, accepts, trading her womb in return. Soon we meet, and upon meeting she seems normal, but it is soon revealed that this new friend has some serious issues.
Tell me, are there any children here?
Fear not, they have been evacuated.
So there are none here. A pity. They're so sweet. But an adult will suffice.
Get back, elf! Galek ne ale natila. Galek ne ale natila.
All I gotta say is that even Vertile couldn't handle that, and he's just fine with Kaim killing children. And I think that says a lot. Arioch, just like Leonard, is hiding a dark secret involving children. Except she's not really great at hiding it. You see, Arioch is a cannibal. Her preference in food being, well, children. Hence why she was asking for them. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure the only reason she was fine with Kaim here was because she was hungry. This dude cannot catch a break. Arioch is insane, that probably being the easiest way to put it. Arioch tragically lost her family at the hands of the Empire, the situation breaking her, leading her to a weird urge to devour children so that she could quote-unquote protect them inside her womb. Though, despite these urges, Arioch is a deadly force, making her the perfect ally for Kaim as he rampages the Empire. But here I want to mention something that has really started to bother me. You see, Drakengard has 3 mission types. The sky battles, the repetitive ground battles, which both I spoke about before, but there's one more. These top-down, straight-line missions. I feel like these missions just shouldn't exist. You run from point A to B, top-down, and you can only use the default sword, which is also like a top 5 weapon in the game, out of like 70 weapons. That doesn't make any sense to me. Great game design. Though I think the worst part of it isn't the missions themselves. Yeah, the gameplay is really repetitive, but it's more so about how these levels are broken up. I want you to recall the very beginning of the game where we make the pact with Angelus. This moment is meant to hook us in as well as introduce us to the main gameplay gimmick, the dragon. So why is the next mission after this cutscene another 10-minute ground battle? It's a really strange and huge sequence break, turning what should be an awesome moment full of anticipation into a frustrating experience. This weird system continues through the whole game. It'll be 2 sky battles that could have been 1, then a ground battle followed by the top-down straight-line mission that serves no purpose, all just to lead to 2 minutes of maybe interesting dialogue. And even though Drakengard's gameplay has somehow found its way to be worse than subpar, the plot continues to pull me back. It's really nice so far, and it's something I definitely am feeling in full force as we continue on to this next section. With Arioch now on our side, we're finally able to sit down. And as Kaim is about to get some well-needed sleep, Inuart appears. He drops from the sky, revealing a pact made with the dragon, him having traded his talent for song for strength. This appearance leads to an awesome fight scene between him and Kaim. Kaimus realized Inuart is bonded with the same dragon that killed his and Furiai's parents. This realization leaving him powerless as the dragon bloodies Angelus and covers the field in fire. With no one in his way and a wicked smile on his face, Inuart walks forward, cuts down Vertile, and takes Furiai against her will, all before mounting his new pact partner unfazed at what he's done.
Welcome to a world without song.
Though injured, we chase Inuart as Kaimus has no choice but to save Furiai. After all, her disappearance could lead to the end of all. Speaking of the end of all, Kaimus is forced to take a detour, as the Empire forces are just on the cusp of breaking yet another seal. As we've reached the battlefield, we are faced with an onslaught of the Empire's otherworldly creatures. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse than these strange alien-like Cyclops creatures, it does. The Empire has begun to drop nukes, like, what? These blows come from their fortress, their power being a big indicator of the hell to be released upon the seal's destruction. And Kaim realizes this, leading to him rushing to their fortress as fast as he can. As we close in, we get a glimpse of Inuart asking to deal with Kaim, him seemingly under the full control of the Watchers. He also turns to speak with Furiai, yet he no longer remembers who she is. Perhaps his obsession with strength is blinding him of his love. This brings us straight to Kaim's arrival, where, you guessed it, we're faced with our first boss fight against Inuart and his dragon. And it's quite an enjoyable boss fight. This fight follows the same rules as every other Sky battle, with the only real difference being Inuart hits really hard and has a lot of HP. Fighting a quick dragon means lock-on shots work well, but barely do any damage. And because I didn't think I'd be able to hit my shots otherwise, I took this slow route with no problem. During this fight, Inuart becomes more and more unstable, with the realization he no longer knows Furiai, causing him to break down and make tons of mistakes, eventually giving us the chance to ride away into the fortress. Now with Inuart out of the way, we can raid the fortress in search of Furiai, and it's not too long before we find her. Upon entering an ominous empty chamber, Kaim looks down to find Furiai with a knife plunged into her chest. With no sign of life and despair setting in, Kaim falls, ready to yell in grief, yet not a sound escapes. Angelus quickly realizes her death must mean all seals are now broken, and although she understands Kaim's situation, his grief, they can't let Furiai's efforts go to waste, and she urges him to regain composure and head out to face the final battle. With Furiai's death, Mana, the red aura we've seen up to now, the Empire's leader, and the Watcher Priestess, reveals herself. The Watchers, if it wasn't obvious enough by now, are some higher power set on eliminating humanity, them using Mana as a way to undo the seals and release the seeds. With her reveal and Kaim's leave, Inuart returns, the dreadful sight of Furiai's death snapping him back to himself before he unleashes his rage.
What have you done?
I broke the seal. Now she's useless.
The Watchers laugh.
The Watchers laugh. La 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 la.
I just want to real quick note the music. All of Drakengard's music is like the music you've been hearing in the clips. And yeah, it's a bit strange, with like maybe 3 songs I'd actually add to a playlist. Not to say it's bad, but rather non-traditional and very atmospheric, with most of it sounding like it belongs in a horror game more than anything. I honestly really didn't get this at first. After all, I'm very used to the NieR soundtracks, which have a way different feel and include a lot of vocals. But I came to notice that these soundtracks work very well for this game, adding that dreary and unclear feeling this game is shrouded in. While it's not a great soundtrack in the way I'd just casually listen to it, it's a great soundtrack when it comes to making Drakengard feel a certain way, something soundtracks should aim to do, and despite being different, I did end up loving it a lot by the end of the game. But Inuart back in his own mind realizes his mistakes, that while he claimed it was all for her, perhaps it was really just for himself, his actions inadvertently killing her. He then takes to the skies with her in his arms, vowing to use the seeds of resurrection to bring her back, just maybe taking their name a bit too literally. Realizing what Inuart plans, we follow suit, engaging in yet another boss battle that is literally the same as the first one. We shoot him down and move on. As we travel, we come across the ancient worm, the origin point of every dragon ever who was awakened alongside the seeds. In a true test of our bond, and regardless of Angelus's dragon heritage, we fight. As if we stop now, the seeds will sow the end of the world. This begins a huge boss fight against the worm, and it's probably the easiest in the game. The worm is this huge target that makes it impossible to miss, and it doesn't really do much. The only real damage you take in this fight is the tens of dragons that share the arena with the worm. A really cool thing about this fight though is the dialogue from Angelus, implying this is not only the first time her and Kaim have felt fear, but implying that she is only willing to commit an act as bloody as killing her parent for Kaim. I guess it's also implied that her feelings for Kaim are strong, like that, although I personally never really got that feeling. I don't know if it's another change from the Japanese version, but I couldn't really find anything in either direction. Together, the two of them just barely strike down the worm, and with the final obstacle fallen, they rush towards Mana's temple, where her and the seeds lie. Upon confronting Mana, Kaim readies his blade to finish the innocent-looking child, but Vertile stops him. As though the blood on Kaim's hands is heavy, he cannot shoulder the slaying of a child, and instead prepares a seal. Vertile's seal is sure to work, and it is. Mana is beginning to be weakened by the casting, but as if the gods themselves are helping her, in a split second she breaks it and begins to grow to the size of a giant. This begins the final fight against Mana, and it's a tricky one. Mana has this shield she'll periodically drop to recharge, giving you just a tiny bit of time to take your shot. But don't even bother using the lock-on because it does absolutely no damage to her. She keeps this up for the whole fight, and once she's down at 50%, she starts to send out rings, adding another thing to worry about. It gets worse as the lower you get her, the faster they become, turning this whole fight into something very tricky. But eventually she goes down, and upon defeat, Mana shrinks and calls out for her mother, as just like Inuart, this poor child was just another puppet for the Watchers. We return to the group as things calm down to find Mana begging us to kill her. Yet that won't do anything now. They leave Mana to suffer with the weight of her crimes, knowing that she shall now be unforgiven for all of eternity. With Mana out of the way, all that's left is to find a new seal and rid the world of the seeds of resurrection. In a strange twist of events, Angelus steps up, as no human could be as strong as her. A strange offer, an otherworldly being like a dragon offering itself for humanity. It's the biggest indicator of how far they've all come during the journey, and so they prepare Angelus for the ritual. As Vertile casts the seal, Kaim holds Angelus and cries, with her commenting that she's never seen him cry before. His tears causing her to tell Kaim something special. Her name, Angelus, and how we will be the first and last human to ever know it, before the seal is complete and she starts to disappear. The seal resurrected.
Ye gods, is it your will that we should live on?
Ending A, the anguish of an unsmiling watcher. This ending really threw me off. It feels like your typical heroic story end, and even though things got dark here and there, we came out fine. If anything, this is the good ending. A great ending. The best possible outcome. One I didn't even think we'd get close to throughout the game. And that's just kind of weird, is it not? For most games, they make it very tough to get the best ending. If anything, on your first playthrough of most games, you will get a bad ending. So the first ending of Drakengard being the good ending, what the hell is about to happen? That left me with only one thought. That was a bit too good, wasn't it? I don't think there's anywhere we can actually go but down. A terrifying thought is Drakengard doesn't have just one ending, not two, not four, 5. It has 5 endings. Drakengard has 5 endings. Meaning 4 more chances where things are most definitely going to get worse. Our second ending is a branch ending. As in Drakengard, every ending is more so a what-if outcome of the world. None of them are really set in stone, and none of them are really the canon ending. Other than ending E, but that's for a specific reason, and that's for later. For now, think back to the second Inuart fight. The one that was a repeat of the first one and was overall just kind of randomly placed. Well, that wasn't randomly placed. If you beat this fight in under 4 minutes, it unlocks another path and the next chapter, where Inuart is able to escape Kaim's might and fly away. We chase him down to the ground and find him in front of a seed of resurrection. And by now, Inuart's mind is long gone. He asks the gods for a miracle, claiming they must be on his side. And when he's told what will become of the world if he continues, he disregards, asking what even is a world without Furiai. With his mind beyond reason, there is nothing but battle, leading to him and Kaim's final match where he is struck down for good, leaving him to die as he lies next to Furiai. Kaim rushes to Mana, but upon his arrival, the girl is gone, a pool of blood in her place, revealing she was killed trying to summon a dragon. In this moment, Angelus speaks, revealing rather than living in coexistence, the dragons have chose to revolt and destroy humanity. Angelus believes in this cause, choosing to break her pact with Kaim and challenge him to a duel. With this, battle begins, and Kaim, finally having his voice back, is sure to give us an awesome set of voice lines. Not all Kaim says during this fight is, "I am Kaim."
I am Kaim.
Strange choice considering his closest ally just betrayed him and he hasn't spoken in forever at this point, but whatever. This fight, it sucks. The Angelus boss fight is easily the hardest so far by a long shot, requiring you to block and dodge continuous magic as she goes back and forth across the arena. Though dodging and chasing her is easy enough, her health pool is huge, and the most frustrating part was that hits just don't register on her, leading to a real frustrating victory. With a heavy heart, Kaim strikes Angelus down and dreadfully moves towards the seed, readying his sword and destroying it in one quick strike. The temple then begins to rumble and the sky to screech as thousands of dragons collect themselves to destroy mankind. Ending C, a companion's eternal farewell. Huh? Wait, okay. Ending C? Is that right? Okay, ending C. I don't know how that happened. Somehow, I missed ending B completely, and upon looking it up, it made a lot of sense, but in a dumb way. It turns out you gotta beat that third Inuart boss fight, the one, that's the same as the first two, but for this one, you have to do it in under 4 minutes. Like, huh? I guess I should have assumed I had to be fast, but you could have told me. This branch begins with Inuart able to yet again escape Kaim and fly off, eventually reaching a seed of resurrection. Still twisted by their name and in a clear state of delusion, he shoves Furiai inside one with the strange hope it will somehow bring her back. The result being perhaps one of the most haunting scenes of the whole game.
Furiai, you have returned to me.
Absolutely insane. And I know I'm not the only one who was instantly reminded of a biblical angel. This scene is just terrifying. This angelic Furiai boss though is fairly hard, but probably the most enjoyable sky boss of the whole game. It's a great blend of every sky battle feature, promoting you to dodge in a calculated way while being careful to aim your shots, as lock-on shots do absolutely nothing in this fight. Yet the lock-on shots do have a role in not getting you killed, as Furiai summons swords and the only way you're hitting those swords is with those lock-on shots. Anyway, it's just a very fun fight. But as you end the fight, Kaim is forced to kill his sister. This being yet another haunting scene as he strikes the angel down, holding her in his arms as hundreds of duplicate angels rise. The true reality of the seed's power finally setting in as Kaim is forced to watch the downfall of everything. Ending B. Flowers for the Broken Spirit. Can you imagine if I missed that? The most insane ending so far, and by a long shot, and I almost just missed it. I almost just forgot it existed. I really did like ending B and C, but as I assumed, it got worse. A lot worse. Not only did we have to fight Angelus before, showcasing what happens if we didn't bond with one another, but in the next ending, we have to watch what I would say is the worst thing you can put Kaim through. He's watching his world fall, this world that he holds dear, and oh yeah, he just had to murder his sister. I can really only hope things get a bit more hopeful and tame as we move on to ending D. As for ending D, Drakengard kinda wants you to replay the game, though this time with 3 new episodes spliced in between the events we've already went through. These 3 episodes will give essential context to ending D, our next ending, as well as fill in some of the awkward gaps in the story. Our first episode comes after we meet Leonard. Leonard's request is him joining us as we try and defend the seal based in the Forest of Fairies. It's 3 missions that mainly consist of the fairy joking about Leonard's disgusting preferences, as well as talk about how most of the soldiers here are kids and trying to protect the seal. The last scene begins with Leonard on the ground in pity, telling Kaim he can no longer go on and that it would just be better for him to die. Yet when the time comes to reveal why, he refuses to tell. You sick creature. Then the Fairy King pops up out of nowhere, making it very clear that he wants us gone and telling us that we basically failed. We should just go to the desert, ending the episode. These episodes kinda make the character traits a bit more apparent without wasting too much time. though they kinda end up feeling just very unimportant as a whole. I just think they're useless. I think it's because they make you go back and they want you to replay the story, but like I was at this story section so long ago and I'm kinda just like, it's all over the place, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it just doesn't work well at all. They just suck. With our next one, Arioch's Madness, probably being even worse. After we find Arioch and the desert seal is broken, we begin Arioch's Madness, where we head to the ocean seal to fight off the Empire. Just like the last, this episode delves a bit more into Arioch, rather really likes to talk about her eating children non-stop. We are told a bit more about her background by the spirits of fire and water, but it's nothing I haven't said before, and even then the cast themselves kinda push it off to the side as they all continue towards the seal. In the end, we do lose the seal, and while the context about the other seals and Arioch's backstory is nice, it's another side story that feels rather unneeded. I don't think you can argue that this just couldn't be fit into a 5-minute scene in the story someplace else. On to our final episode, Cere's Prayer. It takes place right after Arioch's Madness, and is actually a very essential episode as it gives us essential context to understanding Mana. The side story begins as we're introduced to Cere, a young boy who has made a pact with the Golem, freezing something known as the Great Time that lies dormant inside of him as the price for the pact. He is Mana's brother, and as you help him look for Mana throughout these missions, he gives us details about their upbringing. He reveals that he was smothered by love and heavily favored by his mother, as he inherited the ability to be a golem sorcerer while Mana hadn't, leading to a series of horrible abuse for her that Cere himself would feel responsible for. We spend the missions learning this and helping the young boy look for his sister, eventually culminating as Cere being caught and brought to a coliseum. In the end, Kaim saves him, but not before they all sense the final seal break, urging them to all quickly head off to the Sea Fortress. This wraps up all the side stories and brings us back to the main plot, with ending D branching off right where Cere's prayer ended. We find and rush through the Sea Fortress and find nothing. For some reason, the fortress is completely empty with not a single soul in sight. Maybe we're early or too late. And soon we learn the goddess is gone. And according to Leonard, she's perished, with Drakengard sending us right back to before endings A, B, and C? Okay. Take a step back. What just happened? This does not make any sense. With no warning, Drakengard puts me back on this path of failure, with no hints that tell me that I didn't do a previous flight mission fast enough. What great game design. Upon beating the mission correctly, you can rush the fortress yet again, with it actually being occupied this time. Though of course, even in this route, Furii is still missing, with you finding this weird, unstable portal in her place. With no other choice, we have to jump through, and lucky for us, it instantly brings us to the Sky Fortress, bringing us to Furii faster than we could have ever flown. Though here, the game tries the same trick yet again, but I do think it's done a lot better this time around. As you move through the fortress racing to Furii, two things can happen. The most obvious thing to do is run through like normal and reach the top, but strangely enough, this is the wrong option. And though wrong, Drakengard is kind enough to reward you with a special cutscene that puts Furii's death in a whole new light. Soon after Inuart steals Furii, Kaim enters the room and is met by her and Mana, with this appearance prompting Mana to start revealing Furii's true feelings. She reveals that Furii hates being the goddess, something we have come to somewhat understand, but even then, Mana cuts deeper, revealing Furii's feelings for her brother, saying that they make her feel dirty, to the point where she would even say she wants the world to be destroyed. Mana continues on insulting Furii before saying, "You failed at being goddess, now what?" And with those words, Furii's world comes crashing down, her bizarre love for her brother revealed, her inner thoughts shown to the world, and her shortcomings in the role she was given leaves her with the thought to do one thing only.
Do the Watchers laugh too?
This reveals the true horrifying events around Footy Eye's death. Something that up to now seemed like murder was actually done by her own hand. And with her death, we are sent back to the first set of 3 endings. But I think the most haunting part about that cutscene is Keim's reaction. He's frozen, yet, just like before, no sound can escape. Keim is being put through the most horrible things you can imagine. Not even one thing either, it's multiple. This dude is suffering. He's being forced to suffer. Yet the one reaction he seems to want to do is yell, cry, make noise, yet he's unable to. As the Pact, the thing this whole game started with, has removed his ability to do so. It's dreadful. Though, we are sent back to the first 3 endings, and we don't want these, so now we turn back to clock right before we entered that room. Now, what you want to do here is go back downstairs and you'll find a new icon on the map. Go there and we'll now be on the real path towards ending D. You find Mana and end up chasing her around the fortress until you can corner her, where you and everyone else finally get the chance to speak to her. Her brother, Sede, takes this chance to try and break the control the Watchers have on her. Yet it seems all too apparent she is too far gone. And as the girl continues to chant over and over in some trance-like state, Sede orders Golem to smush her. With her death, the gods seemingly strike in anger as the fortress begins to shake, urging the group to rush outside where they witness horrors beyond human comprehension. In a scene I can only describe as hell, the sky is stained blood red and devilish portals open, releasing grotesque beings of mass destruction onto the world. An uncanny scene as these objects of havoc resemble children. Yet to Keim this doesn't matter. It never has. And he takes to the sky to, well, murder these creatures. Though, no matter how hard Keim fights, their numbers seem infinite, with the group soon being forced to the ground, cornered. Then in a moment that might seem heroic at first, Arioch propels herself at the creatures, drawing their attention and allowing them to surround her. Yet this is a moment of pure delusion, as she sees the overgrown children as the perfect meal and can't help but charge at them. Disgusting. As she falls, Vertile demands they run for their life. But as he screams, the ground rumbles, his cries of despair drowned out by the rising of a new divine-like being. The queen of these creatures, far larger than anything we have yet to see, has risen. But if they've learned anything at all on this journey, it's that the bigger it is, the more important it is. And with the new goal of destroying this queen, Leonard steps up, saying he'll be the one to clear the path. In a moment that mimics the last, Leonard says goodbye to Sede and charges the creatures, acting as a distraction so that the others may leave. I think they want us to see this moment as a noble sacrifice and redemption for Leonard, but to me, there's no curing nor forgiving this man. Not at all. This was deserved. Yeah, I might have celebrated that sicko's death, but well, we still gotta get closer to the queen. And so what's left of the group inch closer and closer. But now up close, it becomes clear that defeating a beast of this magnitude by normal means won't be possible. But that's when Sede speaks up, mentioning the great times stored inside of him. You see, Sede has had something called the Great Time inside of him all along, the effects nullified by his pact with Golem. If this pact was to be broken, this Great Time would be released instantly, its effects freezing an area the size of a continent, forever. And though Sede is scared, they all realize this is the only way they could possibly beat the queen. Kicking off the final mission, we drive Sede as close as possible to the queen. And though now weak, injured, and outnumbered hundreds to one, we prevail. In a sight that can only be described as a miracle in a hellish landscape, we drop Sede onto the queen. leaving Kaim and Angelus to look on as they are torn from limb to limb. Upon landing, Sede breaks his pact, releasing the Great Time and asking one final question.
Will you forgive me now, Mana?
Ending D. The Wild Dreams of a Deluded Child. Ending D is... oh my... how do I even describe it? I felt like they took every other ending, added all the worst parts of every single one, put it all in one scenario, and just made it all the more dreadful. From the sheer amount of bloodshed, to the horrors beyond our cast's human comprehension, and the final scene almost seeming like a win for everyone, it's strange. It almost feels like we lost in a way. An absolutely wild ending, and considering they want you to replay most of the story with added episodes that give essential context to this route, I think it's fair to say this almost seems like Drakengard's real ending. Though of course it's not. This video wouldn't have a whole nother section called Ending E if it was, but before I get on about that, I really want to note a small 30-second scene this game randomly shoves in during that section. I didn't mention it at the time because it literally goes nowhere, it's just super random. After Mana's death and after the fortress begins to fall, we see a short scene of Inuart proclaiming the gods have died. This is the last we see of them during this ending. And I'd like to hope, even if unlikely, considering the world basically ended there, that they had some sort of happy ending in this route. Maybe they even survived somehow, and lived on to tell the tale. I think it's a nice little glimmer of hope. But on to our final ending, Ending E. This ending was originally the game's joke ending, a special reward for doing absolutely everything Drakengard has to offer. And I mean absolutely everything. You have to unlock all 65 weapons to access this final scene, and to do that, you must play every episode, every side episode, which there's a lot, and finally, on top of all of that, you gotta do tons of these mission-specific challenges just for another useless weapon. It's a stupid grind. Your reward for your pain and suffering, because trust me that's what it is Chapter 13 or Ending E. The joke ending that would go on to birth the NieR universe as we know it, proving itself as the realest ending of them all. But it took like 10 years for it to be the real ending, so who knows. This ending branches off right as we drop Sede onto the Queen. Though, instead of wavering in the sky, we choose to dive after him and clash with the Queen. This clash is an act that breaks space and time, transporting Angelus, Kaim, and the Queen to modern-day Tokyo? We all end up falling from a strange portal and seemingly ending up in a whole new reality. But, well, we can't falter. The goal is still the same. The Queen must fall. This begins our very final boss fight against the Queen. A boss that Yoko Taro apparently really wanted to be Ayumi Hamasaki. She's a Japanese singer that I guess Yoko Taro is a pretty big fan of, and I think that would have made this fight a lot funnier. As maybe laughing would have saved me from the torture that is this fight. This is the worst boss fight in the game. Not only is it a rhythm game, oh yeah, did I even mention that? It's a rhythm game. The whole final boss battle, the final boss battle of Drakengard is a rhythm game. Yoko Taro, yet again, you mad lad. I suck at rhythm games, and it can't just be a standard, somewhat chill rhythm game. It's gotta be the fastest and most intense one I've ever seen. So I spent half my time pausing to see the next few notes and praying I could get them in time. I don't really care if that's cheating. If that's cheating, I cheated on this boss fight. I don't care. If you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. But eventually, the queen falls. And, well, I just gotta show you it all. I don't even think I could put it into words.
This is Bravo 1. Unidentified target has been neutralized. Over and out.
And other than the obvious, that being that the government sucks, this ending leaves you with a pretty big question. How does it all link to the NieR universe? Well, with the death of Kaim and Angelus, their magic spreads across the lands, as well as the queen, which the queen is huge, that's a lot of magic. Considering that all of them had came from a whole nother existence, this magic was incredibly foreign to Tokyo's people. A Tokyo that had never seen magic at all. As time passed, the effects of this magic would develop a disease in the human world, and through efforts to preserve the now dying human race, we would eventually see the birth of the NieR franchise. And even though I'd love to say far more in greater detail, I think that's about all we have time for today, because there's literal hours of content to talk about if we want to get down that route. This ending marks the finale of Drakengard. And even if ending E isn't what you'd consider the real ending like I do, that's okay. We don't have to agree. The NieR and Drakengard series is a tree of timelines and routes full of different outcomes. Each of these endings technically happened. They're all real, they're all correct. And in the end, this is what makes these endings so damn interesting. It's just yet another part of what makes these games so magical. Drakengard is despair incarnate. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I really didn't think the game would turn out this way. I feel like people tend to exaggerate when it comes to media, saying something is darker or scarier than it really is. And when I started this game, I was sure Drakengard was just another one of those cases. Sure, the NieR games can definitely be dark at points, and I already knew some of the important chunks of Drakengard's lore, so I knew I was in for some kind of ride, but I really didn't think it would be all that. I kept to this idea as I began. I was convinced during my first few hours of play it was yet another classic case of over-exaggeration, but I did stick with it and eventually things started to roll, and before I knew it, yeah. By the end of the game, I was left speechless. Speechless being a very fitting word as it's something that was always there. Kaim was speechless since the very beginning of the game, with most ending and twists leaving me the same way, and I'd like to think that was intended. Clever. This doesn't mean the story wasn't overly confusing and unpolished though. During writing this script, I couldn't help but hate how back and forth the quality of the game is. Not with its gameplay, as I've already spoke a lot about that, but its story. While I really loved what it was talking about, there is so much that just doesn't pay off as it should. There's weird choices that felt like they could have done better or just not included at all. And there's countless scenes that could have just been condensed to make the flow of everything just that bit better. For me, all these things culminated in something I've really been struggling with since finishing the game: putting everything in Drakengard together. Now at the very end of everything, I've played the game, I have had time to think on the script, I've had time to write the script. I felt like it kinda all means nothing. Like, while the story was interesting and it got me at points, it was definitely entertaining, I can't help but feel like there's just not a very big message, if any at all, to walk away with. I got the idea that humanity sucks, and that showcased pretty much through their greatest possible sins, which those greatest possible sins are mostly explored through children for what I assume is shock value. You know, children is definitely going to shock players, you know, they're innocent, all that, especially when you make characters like Leonard and Arioch. Then there's the multiple endings to show that no matter what we do, what humanity does, we're destined to fail. We suck. Every branch ends up with some negative, terrible, tragic event. That definitely undersold everything, but I hope you get it. My point is, I just can't accept this. Would a mind like Yoko Taro really be content with just making a game about humanity's faults? Making it as dark as possible and filling it with shock value to add to that idea? I don't think so, but kinda. Hear me out. There's this interview where Yoko Taro speaks about killing in games. How he thinks it's strange every game must involve the act of killing in one way or the other, and how the players must be insane for even enjoying it. And this in specific really got my gears turning. Every character in Drakengard is insane. Absolutely the most vile people you can imagine. Even someone who should be pure like the goddess has an incestuous love for her sibling. Everyone is just really gross. Then there's the endings, where in the first one it almost seems fine. But from there they seem to purposely get worse and worse. But of course you can't forget the gameplay, which is filled with killing. But the more and more you play it, it slowly turns into a terrible slog of non-stop murder. By the end, it's like you're just okay with it all. If anything, you walk away from the game feeling like it was great, potentially even better than you thought it would be. When in reality, we should be repulsed. We just played a game about humanity's downfall, our own downfall. As the player, we should not be like Kaim, whose biggest trait is that he loves killing. He relishes in everything this game is about. It makes me think that we might just be those insane people Yoko Taro was talking about. I think Drakengard is meant to lead you down this path of insanity and almost make fun of you for it. Hence why the final ending, the very last thing you can possibly do, the thing you get after doing everything and anything you can do in Drakengard, was meant to be a complete joke. It's a genius play and something I think perfectly falls in line with what Yoko Taro seems to believe. Making fun of a player as well as games as a whole for loving a dark topic like killing way too much. And well, maybe Yoko Taro's right. Not everything needs to be graphic to be entertaining. Maybe we should take a look at the stories that tell us things in a different way. Maybe we should work on breaking these barriers media has been so obsessed with for forever. As in Yoko Taro's own words, maybe doing so could bring some real change to the world. And that's Drakengard. For the longest, I've avoided this game not only because I didn't think I could make a good enough video for it, but because people constantly say to just watch a lore video or all the cutscenes. Don't play it. The issue I have with that is that I have trouble connecting with the game if I choose that route. At least for me, I need to put in the hours and understand the game at its very core. Something I don't think I would ever get through a YouTube video. And now, in the end, after everything, I think it was worth it. I would have never felt the amount of twists and turns if I didn't sit and play it. I would have never felt the despair if I watched a video. And although it's definitely not the best game, if I never would have put my hands on, I would have never seen the connection that might have to its overall message. This is the first entry to the Drakengard series. I personally still haven't played 2, and while I have played 3, it is very overdue for a revisit. And then there's the NieR games, more than enough for some other videos on another random day, so stick around for those. I want to thank you for watching. Leave some comments on what you think about Drakengard. Let me know if I missed some lore, if I messed up here and there. It's a big game, big universe. I would be completely open to listening, and I understand if I make mistakes. Just say something. I'll be happy to respond. Also, if you would be kind enough to share this video with someone who likes Drakengard, who likes the NieR universe, it would be great. My big goal for 2024 was to hit 2K, and now with a couple weeks left, I am so close. I also do want to mention I have a membership. It's $5 a month, and with it you get videos early. This one being uploaded 3 days earlier over there. I might start posting teaser clips for videos as well, maybe if there's like a demand. I have no idea what I'm doing so far. I just know the early videos are a definite thing. I also never plan to make exclusive videos. I think that's dumb. If I make something, I want everybody to see it. And yet again, this is all an option. It's never necessary. Last thing I want to say is that I have a Twitter. I talk about my videos. I need to get more active on there because it would probably help me. But yeah, if you're interested, go there. I have nothing else to say. I probably should go get on Drakengard 2. I hear it's terrible. Hopefully, it is not as bad as they say it is. But who knows when that'll be. I might have another video between that and this. Okay, I got lost there. But yeah, I'll see you whenever. I got a lot to edit. This one's looking long. I'll see you with that video. Bye.